Yeah, or preparing to live stream.
Okay, Crystal, make sure you go off camera and that you spotlight Isaiah and Brilliance.
Sorry, 50 dub, I even got it tatted on me. 81, they'll bring the crash into the party. And you know me, turn the O2 into the O3. Without 40 Ollie, there be no me. Imagine if I never met the broskies. God's plan, God's plan. I can't do this on my own. Hey, someone watching it close, yeah, close. I've been me since.
Hello, hello, hello. Hey y'all, how y'all doing? Isaiah, you here with me?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Okay, we getting started then. Good evening, everyone. My name is Brilliance Jones, and I would like to welcome you to Education Powered's Office Hour session with Mr. Alfred Alfred
Come on now.
Shivy.
Come on.
I know I keep saying his name wrong. I'm gonna get it together, and sir, please feel free to come on and get me together when you get here. We are excited to have you guys join us for this evening. It's going to be some great conversation around expanding your impact outside of the classroom. We are back live this evening, and we are excited to have you all plugging in. So for those of you who are already tuned in, please let us know where you're from. Let us know your name. Let us know why you're plugging in this evening and what you're excited to talk about.
Yeah. And if you did not know, this event is hosted by Education Powered, a social enterprise that generates culturally responsive solutions. Culturally responsive teaching has been in the news lately. We'll talk about that later. And resources to energize educators, to empower students, and to eradicate educational inequity. Education Power provides resources, and we provide training to teachers and administrators that promotes culturally responsive teaching practices, even though our government does not want us to do that anymore, specifically in the areas of culture management, authentic engagement, and social justice.
I'm looking forward to us digging into that part. It's taking everything in me to hold my mule for that, but it's coming. All right, so we are in a virtual space, and it is still super important that you all still engage with us during this chat. So please feel free to drop a quick amen, drop some facts, drop some praying hands, drop whatever it is that you want to.
Amen.
Go 100 sign, pew, 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 any of that. Because we want to make sure that we help you feel included. We want you to feel like you're a part of this conversation. You can also ask questions that we love to be able to respond to. And a member of the Education Power team will be monitoring the chat or the comments section. I'm so used to being in Zoom talking about the chat. They'll be monitoring the comment section to make sure that we see y'all's questions.
Yeah. So first of all, I mean, Brilliance, how's your week been? How have you been? You been okay?
My week has been good. My week has been interesting for one reason and one reason only. Can you assume what that reason might be, Isaiah?
Well, it might have something to do with our new segment, which is simply white supremacy. Some things happened this past week, Brilliance. I'm not sure if you've watched the news or if you stay up to date, but some things have happened. And so I wanted to kind of start off by talking a little bit about what has been happening. On Tuesday, our great Texas government, just when we thought they couldn't do any worse, just when we thought they couldn't do any worse, on Tuesday, the Texas House voted to pass a bill that centers around this idea of keeping classrooms free of critical race theory. Which, for those of you who do not know what critical race theory is, it is basically an academic framework that, among other things, probes the ways in which government policies uphold systemic racism. This legislation would prohibit teachers from receiving training that presents any form of race or sex stereotyping or blame. It would also ban teachers from teaching that an individual, by virtue of that individual's race or sex, is inherently racist, sexist, or oppressive, whether consciously or unconsciously. Brilliance. It also prohibits anyone, or it prohibits a teacher saying that anyone should feel guilty, have any anguish, or any other form of psychological distress due to their race. Education, civics, and business groups now have quickly mobilized to oppose these bills. Like, I know specifically in Dallas ISD, we have our superintendent's actually spoken out against this, as well as I think like even like our school board has voted against this as well. But teachers cannot be compelled to discuss a particular current event or widely debated and currently controversial issue. I can't even finish talking, but I'm getting upset already thinking about it. If discussed, a teacher must explore these topics from a diverse and contending from diverse and contending viewpoints without giving deference to any one perspective, the bill states. And so this legislation would also prohibit teachers from giving assignments that involve lobbying or political activism, which I know I have done in the classroom, for course credit or for extra credit. So Brilliance, my question for you is, In hearing about this, what are your thoughts, and what should teachers do if and when this legislation passes?
My thoughts. So, my first thoughts is it is interesting, and I use the word interesting for lack of a better word because I'm trying to stop cursing as much.
Come
That
on now.
the entire state of Texas, as well as other states, as well as whichever local governments are also opting into this, are
Yeah.
after the year that we had, after all of the action, after all of the telling the stories, after all of the, bringing people up to speed, sharing resources. Oh, everybody, well, the problem is people just don't know your story, or they don't know yet what has happened to you. So if you bring them along, then they can take action and they'll be there to support, and whoop, 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 and people vote and all of this and everything that folks did to bring to light injustices, all of the reading that folks did, all of the resource sharing, all of the work that myself, specifically speaking as myself and other Black women and other Black folks, other folks of color did over the summer to bring to light these injustices, that the response after all of that is simply to say, not only are we going to not take the direct action that will prevent this from happening, we are going to prevent you from talking about it, from teaching about it, and from holding folks accountable to the knowledge then that they would have in regards to it. That is dangerous. If we're talking about Dallas in particular, and you and I have been talking about this anyway, Dallas with the racial equity reports has said specifically that we know that Black children, Black boys, Black girls have been harmed explicitly in the school systems and in the buildings that exist within DISD. We know this, and we need to take action based on that. And then the state to respond and say, not only can you not take action based on that, we will remove and reduce funding if you do. If you talk about it, we're going to remove funding from schools that are already underfunded. Like, what?
Yeah. I mean, this is definitely like a topic that I've been thinking about, because I've actually taught a current events class where I tried to find all the controversial stuff to teach about, right? Like that's what students are genuinely interested in. But I do have a couple of thoughts. I have a friend of mine, he might be watching this, but I have a friend of mine, he's pretty conservative. And I remember when I was in college, I was trying to advocate for the removal of these racist statues, right? You remember the statues. Remember the Donald Trump, good people on both sides, right? One of their major arguments for trying to keep these racist statues alive was what? It was, if we erase history, we risk repeating it.
Right.
So the same people who were saying we got to keep these statues around because if we erase them, we risk repeating it, the same people are now wanting us to erase history. Who cares if we repeat it again? Right. And I think that this really does kind of show, and I've been thinking about this a lot, and I'm excited to talk with Shivy about this, but this really does show how much former President Trump, thank God former President Trump, but former President Trump still has a hold on this party. And I say that because one of two of President Trump's, former President Trump's platform points was he said, I want school choice and I want to teach American exceptionalism. Even though he lost, we can see that these state governments are trying to keep that platform in play. And the way that you teach American exceptionalism is if you say, this country was not built on oppression. This country was built free for everybody. You shouldn't feel guilty. You shouldn't have anguish. You shouldn't care. That is literally saying that we don't have flaw, right? And so that is, that's what really is scary for me. And the last point I'm going to say on this is the Texas legislature really is overthinking like they have the upper hand. Like a couple of days ago, I was reading an article that said that 27% of teachers are thinking about leaving the classroom. Why do y'all think that demand for these positions are high, that you can start putting these controversial limitations on it? Are you trying to have any teachers in the classroom is my question. We don't have enough teachers to begin with. And the ones that are staying partly because they get to impress upon the next generation these controversial topics and to get them to think. I always tell my kids, form your opinions today, turn them into actions tomorrow. And so it's like, y'all act like y'all have the upper hand in this, where it's like, you're going to have no teachers one day. you know?
And that's the thing that's so wild to me is the amount of teachers who are already saying, I'm going to teach it anyway. Right.
Right.
The hard part about that is when we're talking about teachers that might lose funding, or we're talking about teachers who might be affected most by it, it's going to be primarily teachers of color who are going to say, I'm going to teach it anyway. I'm going to be a good teacher because we want to show value to our students and to their heritage and to their experiences, which, means that the people who will primarily be harmed by this are not only the Black students, I'm sorry, not even just Black students, but students of colors or students who have experienced some type of oppression based on their identity. It will also be the teachers who share that identity and share the interest in making sure that students' experiences are brought to the forefront, right? So I personally think that this is a great segue into the conversation that we're about to have with our special guest, because I think that the only way that we can actually make headway in this, or try to have some type of protection for teachers, or really push this conversation into more spaces that can hopefully beget change, is by folks who are in the classroom and folks who are outside of the classroom choosing to take action behind moments like this, right? Like at the end of the day, money talks, power talks, right? There are folks who know the people who voted yes for this. There are folks who know the folks who are in power, and people who know the school board leaders who can say, hey, this thing just passed, but we got to make sure that this doesn't fly, in our district. And folks need to be having those conversations. They need to put pressure on people, and it can't just be the educators. It can't just be parents. It can't just be students, right? Everybody really has to get involved and think of the impact that they can have if they focus on, or not even just singularly focus on, but if they put effort into making sure that they are supporting students in this way by advocating for them. Right.
And it's like, it saddens me, right? Because like I was so inspired, for better or for worse, when I got so inspired last summer when we were talking about political activism. And I love talking with my students about the importance of it, right? Like there are students who are passionate behind this. And part of this bill is also saying, you don't get to have this. I mean, you can't even incentivize political activism anymore. And like that really, like, it pains me as a teacher who, I found my love and my passion and my purpose through political activism. Like this is why we have this, that we're talking, this is why we're having this conversation. And so, I mean, it really does, it makes me scared. And like you said, thinking about how we can expand this impact. I mean, this is one of the ways that this bill is kind of is limiting that ability, right? And so, like I said, I mean, I think this is a great time to kind of talk about, what we're going to be discussing with our guest today.
Yep.
Yeah. And like you say, right? Like we need advocates. We need people that are not just, sitting on the sidelines, expecting for things to change without getting in the arena, right? Like, I mean, I went to college because I wanted to be in the arena. I tell my kids, turn your opinions today into actions tomorrow. And right now, we don't get to do that, right? And so, but before kind of, we welcome our guests on here, Brilliance. My question, I guess, for you is like, even looking at your own life, like how did you begin to kind of expand your impact outside of the classroom? Like what were some of the things going through your mind?
To be honest, and I think we've talked about this before, I don't know if we talked about it on this platform though. For me, it was when I was an admissions counselor and I had privilege and responsibility to making sure, what students that we admitted, what students did we not admit, et cetera. And I realized that without considering the impact of their actions, a lot of folks who have that positional power would not actively think about the I don't even know how to say it. It's like the impact of socioeconomics, access to college counseling, access to a robust higher education transition support, like what that could mean for how many students even were applying to college, not just applying, but how many students would then be accepted, would have the resources that they needed. Like, I mean, just even understanding what it is to have a regular transcript versus an official transcript. We had kids that would be accepted and would not be able to be enrolled because they did not ask for official transcript in time. Right. So that's when I noticed that, like, you can be very impactful in the classroom, making sure that students have what they need. But what I needed to do as a member of the staff at the university was bring to light for the university this is what our kids are up against. So what we need to do is develop some type of program or develop some type of process where we make sure that the students do have that, because they're not getting it from their home schools because the schools might be underfunded. So it's on us to think about how we can create equity, how we can create opportunity for students to make sure that they have the access that they need.
Yeah. I mean, and it's like if teachers are not thinking about expanding their impact, how else can we genuinely raise student voice, right? Like a lot of times, like when I'm advocating, if I'm speaking at a school board meeting, or, I just released a blog post yesterday, like part of what I'm trying to do is to take my students' lived experiences as an observer and raise them up. Right. There really isn't an appetite from the local level to the state level for lawmakers and policymakers to genuinely consider the experience of the student. Sometimes they'll listen to the teacher, right, and say, this is what I'm seeing in the classroom. This is what my students are experiencing, right? Like, I wish that some of my students could share their experiences with some of these lawmakers, right? I just this past week, had another student, right, zooming into me. He had his AirPod in. He was working with his family all day. Mr. Carter, I can't get all the work done today because I'm trying to work and I'm a provider for my family. It's like, it's those experiences that make it important for us to expand our impact, because if not us, then who? Right. I think especially how horrid this state legislature has been. I mean, this state legislature has been horrific for students, right? You would think after a global pandemic, you would think after global protests centered on race, you would think after George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, the list can continue, that we would see at least some remedy. But genuinely, because of the grip that I think Donald Trump has on this party, we are not going to see very much. And I'll be honest, like, I was thinking a lot today, like, can I stay in public education in Texas? If this is what the reality is going to look like, can I do that? Right. And so, but I think this is really a kind of a great time, for us to bring in a really, really special guest. I want to first kind of talk a little bit about him, and then we'll bring them on and kind of continue the conversation that we're having. But Alfred Shivy Brooks graduated cum laude from Georgia State University's Andrew Young School of Public Policy. So he probably knows what he's talking about. Hopefully he can give us some knowledge, give our viewers some knowledge. Shivy began lobbying within the Georgia General Assembly, as a legislative aide for the AFL-CIO and the Working Families Caucus. Shivy spoke up for the most vulnerable residents in Atlanta and Georgia. Shivy went on to then pursue a career with the Department of Behavioral Health and Development. Traveling around the state, Shivy has advocated for funding, benefits, and basic needs for those who are in need. Seeking to be home more often and travel less, Shivy was inspired to follow in his father's footsteps and began his career as an educator. And now as a coach, as a teacher, as a mentor, Shivy has changed the lives of hundreds of students. I can't wait to talk about that experience as well. He has created an Instagram page to keep his students engaged beyond the classroom. Shivy's following, he's got a clothing business, and his advocacy has quickly rose. And I believe that he is in the midst of running for office. And so I cannot wait to welcome to our Power Hour this week. Everyone, welcome Mr. Alfred Shivy Brooks. Alfred, are you there, Mr. Shivy?
Yo, we are here. How are you? I think we got to enable my ability to turn video on. Oh, wait, are we there?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're coming in. Boom.
Okay.
Coming. I think we coming. It's coming. Hey, let's go.
Hey, friend, how you doing?
I'm blessed. How you doing?
Doing good.
All right. So for the record, all right.
Yeah.
Bless your hearts trying to get my name right. Okay. Like,
I'm
bless
sorry,
it.
I'm
You
sorry.
had, but Queen, you had it right the first time.
What?
So it's Alfred Shivy.
We had a whole meeting about this yesterday, and they judged.
I'm gonna go.
They judged me in the meeting. So I'm glad that we're recording this. But go ahead.
You know what? We're gonna give you a round of applause. We're gonna give you a round of applause.
we had this
did that.
conversation, and I was
You
like,
did
I'm gonna
that.
get it right. I don't know about Brilliance, but I'm gonna get it right, and then I did. But so can we call it? So we'll go. So you go by Shivy. Does that work?
Shivy is my name. Yes, absolutely.
Shivy, thank you so
Yeah.
much for joining us today. And honestly, right before you got on, we were having this conversation. It's also, I've been following you for a long time actually, and I know that this is something that you've been talking about
Right.
on your social media. But
Yeah.
on Tuesday, right, we're now seeing critical race theory under fire in the Texas legislature. I shared a post that you wrote today about this. What are your thoughts about these new laws, and what advice do you have for teachers, right, who are really worried about an entire aspect of why they teach being removed from the classroom?
Wow. So that is a very layered question. I think first, I just really want to say thank you to you guys for tapping me in on this conversation, giving me the opportunity to just share space with you, share a little bit of just who I am with everyone, and caring enough about what I have to say to give me the opportunity to do this. So first off, thank you to you guys. But I think what we have to understand is that patriarchal white supremacy is like having its death kick right now, right? Like it is trying everything that it can to uphold its stronghold on America. And it is multifaceted what that looks like. Okay. Yeah. So you're seeing voter suppression, right? So we're going to make it more difficult to vote us out, right? And then you see it economically, right? So you got tax plans that 86 cents to every dollar in Trump's tax plan went to reappropriating wealth to the top 2%, right? You see it in the form of building walls. You see it when it comes to abortion laws. You see it when it comes to education, right? So like they now have to safeguard the awokenness of white Americans, right? So now you're seeing this psychological warfare and this front that we have to address, where through saying, oh, well, you can't talk about the historical context of current racial issues. You can't talk about the counter storytelling, right, of Black people in America. You can't talk about the permanence of racism and how it is manifested systematically in schools. You can't talk about whiteness as opposed to being white. You can't talk about entrance convergence. You can't talk about critique of liberalism. You can't talk about any of these things because you're triggering my white fragility.
Right.
Yeah.
You're making young white kids feel guilty for some of the worst days or the worst actions of some of their ancestors.
Right.
But have they ever taken the opportunity to think about what it meant to be Black in America?
Come on.
Or to be that Black student in a classroom? Yeah. And so when folks get caught up in all of this, it's all this fodder, and it's funny because I've just been talking with this young man educator in LA who is anti-CRT, right? And first, let me just say this. When it comes to the academy, so many folks get caught up in all these key terms and coin terms, right?
Yeah.
Like oh, it's critical race theory. It's culturally responsive pedagogy, right? They throw all this alphabet soup around, right? And in our community, we just call keeping it real.
Right.
You can't outlaw keeping it real.
Right.
Yeah.
This is not sedition. This is not libel. This is not us lying to students. They're literally trying to criminalize telling the truth.
Telling the truth.
Yeah. So are you meaning to tell me, like, do you think we just had Freedom Summer and the Great Awakening of America happened on May 25th of 2020 with the 9 minutes and 20-second long murder of George Floyd? Do you think that was something that happened because teachers were indoctrinating students within schools? We didn't even have school.
Right.
We didn't even have school.
Right.
So do you not understand that young people are getting their true socialization and learning through social media, and
Yep.
you can't govern it. You can't stop it. This is why what's happening in Israel and Palestine has become what it is right now, because we don't have to look and learn through the filter of mainstream media. We can hit hashtag free Palestine and see from people's firsthand experience exactly what is happening.
Right. Yeah.
That's what it is to be in America now.
Yes.
You cannot stop the truth from being heard, being known, being learned, and being shared.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I digress. I'm sorry.
No, that was
Yeah.
it. That was good. That was good. That was good. Power is literally being returned to the people. And at every step, I love what you said, that it is white supremacy's death kick. Because you cannot, I mean, you can't undo what has been done. People have access to ways to tell their story and to tell their story from a true perspective that you cannot shut down. And as you do attempt to shut down, it then becomes even more like it snowballs into more people trying to understand why you silence and more people trying to understand why you're trying to hide the truth. That's good. That was good right there. I appreciated that.
Yeah, I mean, I think also, another concept or another aspect of this is they're doing it pretty unapologetically, right? Like, especially, I mean, we've got people in Texas on this call, we got people from Georgia, right? And both of these states over the past few months have done this stuff in plain sight, unapologetically. And part of it is because they have a demagogue who has absolute complete control over their party. And anyone, I mean, they just got rid of a leader who said, hey, I don't really know if, I don't really know if Trump's telling the truth about this election. And they said, all right, fuck you, you're out, and that's it, And so it's like, this is all happening in plain sight, unapologetically. And I think one thing for us to keep in mind is that they feel like they can get away with this. Right. And this is why it's so important. We're going to talk about this in a little bit, but this is why it's so important to take power away from them politically, because they know that the policy and the money, they've got a grip on it. And so they can, criminalize, giving water to people in voting lines, right? They can criminalize teaching about white supremacy because they know they can get away with it, and they will get away with it until we begin to put people in office who can share these experiences and speak to them and lift up what we are seeing in our communities and in our classrooms. And so, I think that's
this is the part that gets missed though.
Mm-hmm.
But will we?
Right.
But will we? You see, as a person who I'm running for office for the first time, right? A city council race here, that is a crucial race. Like what's happening in Atlanta, I'm talking about, we are in a political space that hasn't been seen in over 100 years. We've never had a mayor not run for re-election in 100 years. And that's what we have right now. We have people on council who look like us in this conversation, Black as us, who are for keeping jails and prisons open, who are for getting rid of signature bond systems and want to go back to capitalism within our justice system and those type of things, right? But we can have this going on, but folks don't necessarily see the same emergency to invest in campaigns. You see, we say we want change, but we don't empower change.
Right.
It's not a matter of taking power from anyone. It's a matter of empowering the voices that are being courageous and willing to put themselves out there.
Yeah.
I can agree with everyone and be progressive as everyone would want me to be. I can be forward thinking. I can be aggressive about it. I can be loud. I can do my part. But if people don't support the campaign, if people don't put their dollars in, it won't matter. And if they don't show up to vote in midterm elections or local government elections when there's not a president on the ticket, right?
Yeah.
It's like, what are we actually talking about anymore? And we see it happen over and over again. This is why 2008, we can get a Barack Obama, but 2010, he can lose a supermajority.
Right.
We tap out.
And I think that at this point, that's what I was just going to say. At this point, people are fatigued. People are fatigued in a way that is like a soul fatigue. And it's because not only are we seeing like, okay, we're trying to make progress while also working these jobs, while also trying to, protect and raise families, while also trying to protect ourselves and somehow start businesses and also keep up with trending topics, keep up with social media. meet whatever needs society is telling us that we have to meet. And we did all of this for the last 4 years under a constant reminder of just how aggressively anti-Black and I say anti-Black, and I mean everything that goes. I'll say anti anything that is not white, normative, wealthy, landowning Protestant behavior, right?
Stockholder.
And at this point, like I know even for myself, and I'm a person, I've been active since I was in high school, probably actually before then, really and truly. I'm tired. So I know if I'm tired, and I'll stay about that action, I know folks are tired because the soul crushingness of every day. I can remember the week after Trump was elected, I was driving on the freeway and a cop got behind me and I was stressed out. And I called my friend. I was like, why is this guy following me? I don't know what's going on. If something happened, I'm ready. Like, just let people know, like, I didn't go out like that. And then the cop, like, actually pulled around and went somewhere else because he was never even following me. But the feeling, like the awareness that I had to hold on to physically altered, like, my body. It altered my mind. It altered my ability to process things as they were happening, right? So the exhaustion has been consistent. And at this point, people are like, oh no, now it's time to take action. And folks like, well, what the hell have I been doing for like, I've been actively staying alive, you know? And it's unfortunate because that is how white supremacy wins, because it exhausts us spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally, and every other way, to where at this point, when we do have folks who are making change, who might be stepping into positions where we can actually see something, and it exhausts us because you got so many, like you said, kinfolk that ain't kinfolk who have been promoted to these places, who then have also taken on the role of our oppressors. So now not only are you exhausted, you paranoid, you don't trust shit.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So at this point, it's like, how can we, and this is a question, this is an actual question. I hope you don't mind, I'm throwing this out there, Isaiah. But how do you go about revitalizing the desire within people to take action when they are exhausted, and to do it in a way that does not cause more harm? Because we know that the body keeps score, right?
Yeah.
So how can you do, how do you do that?
You know, shout out my good friend. Well, first off, let me name this and validate everything that you said. Okay. What you're talking about is racial trauma.
Yeah.
And we have generational racial trauma as Black Americans. And I think it goes underappreciated, underamplified, and underattended to where folks almost treat us as if we're like paranoid, right? Like we're making it up, right? But this racial trauma thing is real, right? Is real. I remember, you know, I was marching, I'm marching down the street. It's just a couple weeks ago, right after the Chauvin verdict. Okay. Folks met up in Atlanta. I mean, this is the Mecca out here. We march for everything, right?
Right.
Like, we march for everything out here. And my homegirl, she's a state representative, Erica Thomas, and she's out there with her daughter. Her daughter is literally leading the march, right? Like she got a bullhorn and she's out there, no justice, no peace, right? And she's in her little tennis skirt and she's skipping down the street leading the chants, right? She's probably, I think she's about 10 years old. Police officer is on a side street, you know, there. And I want to say he maybe had been pulling somebody over or something. And I hear her go, Mama, the cops over there, they gonna come over for us. 10. Already having a sense of paranoia. Her mother's a state rep who happens to be best friends with Representative Park Cannon, who knocked on the door of the governor when he was signing a racist voter suppression bill and was arrested for doing so.
Right.
The racial trauma that we experience as Black Americans is so pervasive and insidious, and it is learned behavior. It's almost genetic at this point. Yeah. And I think we need to be aware of that. And I think when we get in positions of leadership, we have a responsibility to create opportunities for healing when it comes to racial trauma within our cities. One of my good friends, Principal Ra, he's a principal of a high school.
We talked to him last week.
That's last week. Yeah.
Okay. Shout out my boy Ra, right?
Very dope. Yes.
That man is literally family. Shout out to him. He just had a new son born 2 nights ago.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Ra.
Prince
Beautiful
Ra.
baby boy. Yep. And his prince. He talks about something called critical hope. And I think our communities have a absolute need for critical hope. And so what that looks like in a place like Atlanta, for example, like I believe we have to be intentional about decriminalizing poverty, lack of access, and what it is to be Black in this city. So what that looks like is you should know if you have an expired registration that you'll get a ticket in the mail, you're not getting pulled over for it.
Right.
If you have a busted tail lamp or a busted headlight, that is not cause for a police officer to pull you over, you're going to get that ticket in the mail. Right? Because all of these things are results of poverty, right? People don't go with their car in disrepair or their registration without being paid just because they don't want to, right? Typically, these things happen because you have lack of access. I feel too often those type of stoppages become reason for full body pat downs. We got to be aware of that. And so what that means is as a legislator, as a person in city council or a mayor or a state ledge or whatever you are, you have a responsibility to bring a sense of comfort in decriminalizing what it is to be Black,
right,
or not have. And I think those type of things kind of give you some ease, right? When they decriminalize marijuana, we still don't have marijuana decriminalized in the state of Georgia, but in Atlanta, it's decriminalized. You know, you're not going to jail because you got a blunt or a joint, right, or less than an ounce on you. But we have leaders in this community that believe that it's viewed as being soft on crime and becomes a reason to why crime is on the rise. It's this type of demonization of each other, and how we've turned that into opportunity to capitalize financially on it, fund cities through it, and cause generational harm through it. That has to be stopped. So how we get that healing is about being intentional about unraveling the noose around Black and brown Americans' necks, at the city level, at the county level, at the state level, and at the federal level.
Right.
That's how we do it.
Yeah. You know, and I think one of the things that the sad part, right, is the reality is that people don't show up for local elections or elections where there's not a president on the ticket. And in most cases, those are the most critical elections. Those are the ones that actually do impact your day-to-day life, right?
Yep.
There's only so much that Joe Biden's going to be able to do for us, right?
Yep.
But a new person in the Atlanta General Assembly could genuinely change the day-to-day lives of community members. And really, you know, what we wanted to talk about, and we've, you know, been talking about this, is, you know, expanding your impact out of the classroom. I know that you have your own histories that I think, you know, have really painted your advocacy. But tell me about, you know, when did you decide to say, okay, I'm going to take what I'm seeing, I'm going to take my life experience, and I'm going to make kind of that jump into the deep end. And I'm going to run for office. Like, was there a moment? Was it something that you've been planning to do? Was there a certain issue or experience that you had that kind of prompted you to kind of make this shift and say, I'm doing it, I'm running for office?
You know, running for office is something that I think I'd always intended to do. I was that proverbial kindergarten, first grade student who was like, I never said I wanted to be the president, but I was like, I'm going to be the mayor, right? To me, the mayor was more real, right? So I'm like, I'm going to be the mayor. And as, you know, I grew, you know, I was 12 years old. I'm canvassing for a state senator who lived in my neighborhood where I grew up. Shout out Senator Hill. And knocking door to door for her, and working for the Democratic Party, knocking on doors, canvassing throughout high school, and then in college. And then when I graduated school, I worked as a legislative aide at the state legislature here in Georgia. And I had the opportunity to be around a lot of leaders at the time. I got to work closely with Stacey Abrams and Senator Nan Orrock and some people here in the state of Georgia. But there was some conversation at that time with some of the union leadership that I was working closely with, who were like, you know, you should think about running for this seat, or you should think about running for that thing. And you know, I was 27 years old, and in my mind, I needed more lived experience. to be able to do the job with fidelity, to be able to do the job with some wisdom with me. And I waited. I took my turn. I worked in the mental health field. I traveled around the state of Georgia. I worked as an educator. I learned from the young people I was with. And then last summer, I have 3 of my students who are marching in the streets of Atlanta just days after George Floyd was murdered, live for everyone to see. And they're out there with a phone. They're like, Mr. Brooks, we outside. You inspired us. You inspired us. Where you at? Come outside with me.
Mhm.
And I had knots in my stomach. I was literally like, I think I had the worst case of IBS ever. Like I couldn't hold water, right? Because I knew that once I went outside with them, everything was going to change.
Absolutely.
And it did. And the next day I went out and I marched with my students, with Bernice King and some local leaders in Atlanta. And conversations started. And through walking the streets of Atlanta, I started seeing firsthand, like when you march, you see a city in a different kind of way.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the difference between riding a bike through a neighborhood or walking through a neighborhood versus driving through a neighborhood is way different. You can smell everything. You can see everything. Your senses are more in tune with what is around you, especially if you grew up not having a lot. You're hyper aware of what's around you, right? And especially knowing that, you know, you got racist folks that'll put your life in danger because you're doing what you're doing at that time.
Right.
And in doing that, we would talk about the problems and the things that we saw around the city. And we would talk about what needed to be fixed. And we would talk about what we could do about it or how we can do about it, do something about it. And, you know, it got to a place where I had, you know, other people who were on city council who was walking with me or students that were walking with me. And they were like, yo, Mr. Brooks, you should really think about running. Like, we believe in you. We know that your heart is in the right place. You have a widespread network. You have access to a lot of things. Why don't you run?
Yeah.
And there was only so many times that I could hear that before, you know, it's like God, you know, you'd be like, God, give me a sign. He like, look, I done smacked you in the face with 5 of them.
Right. You got to
How
list.
many? Yeah. How many more are you going to ignore? And so I just really started listening to the people. And then I think the last piece that really got me was we had an opportunity to do some police reform legislation here in the city. And it would add more police accountability here in Atlanta. And Rayshard Brooks gets killed. I get a call at 2:00 in the morning from my brother. His name is Christian Wise. He ran for a district attorney here in Atlanta and lost, unfortunately. And he's like, yo, Shivy, somebody is laying dead, shot by the cops in the drive-through at the Wendy's. Everybody outside right now. They're in uproar. I need you to come out here and help me calm the crowd down. Right. 2:00 in the morning, I get up out of my bed and I go to the scene and everything is in this, like, just going crazy. And folk are like, you know, we're gonna burn it down. You know, it's like folks are hot. And, you know, I had words with a lot of folk out there that night. I probably, you know what I mean? We had to, being outside is something different, right?
Right. You gotta act like you outside when you outside.
Yeah, it's a whole different thing. Like, I'm not just social media and classrooms, right? So it's a reason I get called to something like that. So, you know, basically it didn't burn that night. The next night I wasn't able to go out there and it did. And what became apparent at that time was that the city really needs true leadership. Like, it really needs someone that is in tune with the community, who is a true value add, who actually cares, who sees things through the lens of returning comfort and promise and hope to the people, instead of corporate interest or rich people's interest, or exacerbating what we have here in Atlanta, which is the worst wealth disparity gap in the country. It's time for us, young people, forward-thinking people, to have a seat at the table of power. And so that night was like, that was it for me. And we were all in on this race, and it's a tall order. But I believe if I get the opportunity to share space and share my message with folks here in Atlanta, we can win this thing in a landslide.
I support that. I support that. Everything that you just said, I support. I want to ask, it's a two-part question. One part of this question, I'm speaking specifically to the folks who are watching, and I'm going to ask you guys to respond to this in the chat, please. This is my Ricky Lake moment. I'm coming to the audience. This is your microphone moment. When you think about the impact of yourselves, folks in the audience, if you are an educator, if you are a parent, etc., when you think about the impact that you can have right now based on your position, the folks that you know, etc., and you think about opportunities to expand your impact, what are the specific things that you think of as, oh, I would, and I know this is going to sound like a weird question, but I would do it if I had this. And the reason that I'm asking that is when we talk about resource and access, and we talk about what people would do if they had the time, if they had the attention, if they had the money, if they had the know-how, right? Mm-hmm. This is an opportunity for you to drop that in the chat right now and find out whether or not somebody can help you get access to that. And if so, we're expecting you to expand your impact, number one, right? And even if you are not able to do it, we really just want you to imagine what could be if opportunity and access were provided for you, that the changes that you could make. Because we're listening to you right now talk about a moment that went from a conversation with your students to you running for office. But what I know is true, and I don't even know you, but I know that this is true, is that seed, every time that you had those conversations with your students, it's likely that you were planting seeds for them to know that at some point they should be running for office. Correct. Right. Mm-hmm. And so this is your opportunity to show and prove. You get to be an exemplar for them of, we talked about it, we were there, I'm doing it, and I expect you to be able to do it. So I'm asking you guys this question of what you would do if you had the knowledge, the access to whatever it is that you need to get you to that next step, because I'm assuming that is what you gave to your students. And then my question for you, while the audience is hopefully typing that into the comments, is as an educator and knowing that we are going to be in this space where educators can and cannot talk about certain things, what is one way in particular that you think that educators can work with their administration at school, can work with their boards, their whomever else it is, to make sure that these safely that students are, because I also don't want educators to feel like they have to martyr themselves. I feel like we do that way too often. What is a way that they can work safely right now to making sure that the truth is being told? And I mean, you were a government teacher, so there's one way is make sure you're telling it in government class, right? You can't hide history in that way, but what are just some ways that they can circumvent this law to make sure that they're able to tell their students the truth?
You don't. I like much of what happens to the harm of educators in education happens because we're constantly circumventing instead of intervening.
Come on now. Okay. I like where you're going. Yeah.
I get it. Like, I mean, look, no, we don't necessarily want people to martyr themselves in education, but why not? Why not? There's an 800,000 teacher shortage coming up into next school year. You think you got scarcity of finding another job?
Right. Yeah.
Like if only educators act like they know who they are and what their value is in education, we would not get bullied. Teachers are literally, there's a study on this. Teachers are the most professionally bullied individuals in America. Because we sit back and take everything. They're one of the most mistreated, undervalued, undercompensated workforces that there are. And it is truly because historically it's predominantly women.
Yeah.
Right. Earlier, you had made a point. You talked about like, we're tired, we doing this and we doing that and et cetera, et cetera. But as Black people, we don't have the luxury of being too tired.
Yeah.
And as educators, we don't have the luxury of continuing to placate these supremacist norms and not stand up for ourselves and stand up for our students and stand up for our communities.
Yeah.
How much longer are we going to sit back and just take it? So no, don't circumvent, intervene, do it anyway. Get fired.
Listen, I'm with
Yeah.
you. I didn't want to say it because I don't like to tell people to do that.
Well, yeah.
I agree. Like,
I mean,
all day long, let's
because
go.
and I think another aspect, another reason why we have to do that is, right, we don't have time on our sides. Like, over this pandemic, it has been Black students who have lost the most over when it comes to learning loss. We look at it, Black students have lost the most. We don't have time to circumvent it, right? Like,
But
change
also
has to happen.
let me ask, can we please give context to the time?
Mhm.
We've lost almost 600,000 American souls to this pandemic within one calendar year.
Yeah.
One calendar year. Okay. When you guys are educators, when we're teaching about the Civil War, right? We see that as one of the greatest losses of American life and American blood and American treasure in our history. 600,000 people died in that. That happened over the course of 4 years.
Yeah.
The pandemic, 1 year, 600,000 souls. The Civil War, 4 years, 600,000 souls. Have you ever taught about the Civil War and had a conversation about what the learning loss was for that generation? Ever?
No.
Yeah.
Ever?
No.
Let's stop playing into the games that these folks put out there, because they are distractors for what their real intention is. They bring these things up because they need teachers in classrooms with kids in there so that American workers can go back to doing what they're doing and ignoring that a pandemic even existed.
Mm-hmm.
Now, where we are now with vaccinations and all of the things, right? We are in a different place than where we were just 6 months ago or 8 months ago or 9 months ago at the start of the school year, where we had a denier in the Oval Office, a denier of science, a denier of common sense, a denier of truth, a person who was literally risk adverse to what was honestly going on.
Right.
We are in a new day. So I'm not saying that we have the same proposition where we are today. We're in a different day. CDC just releases, if you've been vaccinated, you ain't even got to wear a mask indoors.
Right.
Now, we definitely have learned that the CDC policies have been politicized over time, right? Yeah. And so many of us have skepticism about it. However, at the beginning, when they started really having conversations about reopening schools and putting people back in the buildings, right? They were doing this for economic rationale.
Oh, absolutely.
That's what it was all about. So when folks are talking about learning loss and all of that, they are performatively centering students.
Yeah.
When that ain't really what it is. So when we go out there talking about learning loss, we become complicit with their propaganda.
Mm-hmm.
So let's be a little wiser.
Yeah. What can we do? I mean, obviously we can't, if we were there, we could come, work with you and campaign with you. But for the people who are going to be watching around the country, what can they do to kind of support you and kind of the work that you're doing? What can we do to support you in your campaign? Let all of our viewers know how we can tune in and follow you.
Yeah. Well, I would list two ways. So look, we're in a virtual day and age where people can volunteer. There are going to be virtual call banks. There's going to be a lot of things that people can do virtually to help us to reach people here in the city of Atlanta. And if you would like to tap in with that, I would encourage you, go to brooks4atl.com, brooks4atl.com, and you can click the volunteer link and offer your talent or your time to the campaign. You can click the chip in button and make a contribution to the campaign. I have some 40,000 followers. If 10% of my followers would all contribute $20 a month, $30 a month, $50 a month, right? A small amount, I would be so well funded in this effort, right? That I wouldn't have to waste time just calling people on the phone asking for money all day, because that's really what campaigning looked like, the part that nobody talks about, right? You're just sitting there with a list of phone numbers of people either you ain't never talked to or you haven't talked to in a long time. Right. And you're like, hey, how you doing? Remember, I knew you in third grade. So I'm running for office. Would you like to chip in? Right. I could be focused on shaking hands and knocking doors and talking to people and crafting policy and doing real work and helping to feed people in the community. Last week, we fed 100 teachers for Cinco de Mayo, right, through my campaign. that's the kind of work that I want to be doing. I don't want to get elected to do the job. I want to do it on the front end. And then the last thing, people could text me directly. I have a phone number where people can join my text community. They can literally text me directly. I can text you back. And the number is 404-737-0901. That's 404-737-0901. So you can text me and join in, and then we can like share information with you and things like that as well. And of course, I always invite people to follow me on Instagram at call me Shivy, right? Call me Shivy, SHIVY. And you can hit me there.
I love it. I love it. Thank you. You dropped a bomb like 5 minutes ago, and I'm gonna talk to somebody else offline about that for the rest of the night. Okay. But before you go, because that was real good to my spirit. Before you go, I'm gonna ask you 2 more questions real quick. Sure. Number 1, what is one final phrase that pays, which you want to make sure that everybody here walks away with? And then let us know a song that reflects who you are and how you show up in the movement, because we got a playlist.
Okay. I'm gonna answer the song one first because I'm gonna forget. I'll say "What's Going On."
Okay. What's Going On,
Marvin Gaye, right?
Yeah.
I think that speaks to the times. It speaks to where we are. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot that needs to happen. I think another one will be "Wake Up."
Yeah, that's good. Which one, the Toby version or like the original version?
Not the original.
Oh, okay.
The original. Okay. The phrase, it's the campaign phrase. We can't wait.
Yeah.
We can't wait. There is an emergency for change. There is an emergency for hope. There is a critical position that we are in right now that we can no longer wait for change. We're no longer accepting slow, progressive, incremental change. We are expecting wide sweeping waves of shifting today, yesterday, now. And we need to move with that sense of urgency because we don't have the luxury of taking our time or waiting for permission or allowing gatekeepers to unlock the door. We're climbing gates, we're going under them, we're going through them, we're dismantling them, and we're breaking the locks for good.
That works.
Yeah. Well, Shivy, thank you so much. I mean, you've given us so many amazing just pieces of information that I think we're just going to sit on for a while. And thank you for everyone who's joined us this evening. There's going to be a ton of people that continue to watch this throughout the weeks. I hope that all of you guys walked away with some new perspectives, some new ideas, and even challenging our own thoughts of those of us who are in the community, those of us who are allies. For everyone who is tuning in, stay connected to Education Powered. We're going to drop all of Shivy's information for you guys so that you guys can stay connected. Shivy, thank you so much for joining us today. We hope to stay in touch with you. We will stay in touch with you, and we'll do whatever we can on our end to make sure that people in Texas know what's going on over there in Atlanta.
Yep. Now, I appreciate you all. I see y'all out there. Much of what happens there ends up trying to come here. What happens here tries to come out there. It's a South thing, you know what I'm saying? and so we're fighting a lot of the same struggles. And so I encourage you all out there to keep applying pressure. Because if I do my part here and you do your part there, we're doing our part for each other. And the collective of us is really important, man. And we need each other. We all need to do our part. So, I'm encouraged by you all using your voices, using your platforms, being intentional. Because it gives me affirmation, right? That we're not alone wherever we are doing this work. So, let's keep making history together.
Let's do it. All right. Thanks, y'all. Everyone.
Got to get that game going while he's on his way out. Thank y'all. We'll see you guys next week.